Before challenging the Emperors, Doflamingo and Katakuri were definitely the biggest name pirates that Luffy had to face off against in the New World. They stood as a major test for Luffy's ability to contend on this stretch of the sea, and whether or not his 2 years of training was time well spent. Doflamingo was a member of the Warlords, which consisted of powerful pirates that had been given immunity by the government in exchange for their immense strength and infamy. It was even said by Kuzan that Doffy was an exceedingly rare class of pirate, unlike even Boa Hancock, which is a testament to his pedigree. As for Katakuri, he's the strongest of Big Mom's Sweet commanders, who are her top soldiers. Not only does he have a bounty over 1 billion, he's had a long-running winning streak in battle that was only ended by Luffy. Katakuri and Doflamingo have similarities as fighters, with the major one being they're both paramecia users who have awakened their devil fruits. The awakening of a paramecia has the ability to affect objects aside from the user, so in the case of Doflamingo, he can turn his surroundings into string, and Katakuri can turn his surroundings into mochi. Just like most strong fighters in the New World, Doffy and Katakuri can use both armament and observation haki, as well as conqueror's haki, showcasing they have the disposition of a king. That's about all there is to the general abilities they share, but before we delve into this in more detail, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy content like this, and as always, your support is much appreciated. When it comes to the final battle against Doflamingo, most people remember it as Law and Luffy in a 2v1 against Doffy. However, this is only true from chapters 758 to 761. Doffy still had both Treble and Bellamy on his side, and although Treble wasn't much help, Bellamy limited Luffy's ability to fight. This is because Luffy considered him a friend and didn't want to hurt him, so Doffy deliberately controlled Bellamy to either distract or weaken Luffy. Luffy forced Law into using their secret plan by catching Doffy off guard and hitting him with the Red Hawk. Although it knocked down Doffy, it wasn't a knockout attack, so he was able to endure it and carry on fighting. Luffy and Law were split up in chapter 761, with Law taking on Doffy and Luffy taking on both Bellamy and Doffy's string clone. The Law fight isn't too important for this matchup, but to sum it up briefly, Law was somewhat competitive against base Doffy, being able to exchange hits clashing back and forth, blocking Doffy's 5 coloured strings with his haki-cladded arms, and even dropped Doffy to one knee after landing his injection shot, which was his second strongest attack. Ultimately, Doffy endured the injection shot with relative ease and was able to see through the rest of Law's attack patterns. The fight ended with Doffy winning in convincing fashion, and it's made very clear that Law couldn't match him. Law's final attempt to take out Doffy was with the Gamma Knife, and although it dealt severe damage, Doffy was able to repair himself by reconstructing his ruptured organs. Doffy highlights that what he's doing isn't healing, however he was able to avoid what would have been a fatal injury. Now for the Luffy section of the fight, Doffy showed on multiple occasions that he's both faster and stronger than Gear 2 Luffy, and this remained true even after the Gamma Knife. Doffy even comments on how Gear 2 is fast, but it didn't have any weight behind it to deal lasting damage. On the other hand, Gear 3 is much stronger than Gear 2, but it sacrificed speed for extra strength, which allowed Doffy to react and block it with his spider web, or he'd just dodge it and attack Luffy's body that's left wide open. This left Luffy no choice but to use Gear 4, which is much faster than Gear 2 and stronger than Gear 3. Bounce Man Luffy overwhelmed Doffy so badly that he was sent flying across the city by just a Kongon, which forced Doffy to use his awakening. Doffy is able to react to Bounce Man as it pertains to putting up his armament for defense and dodge Luffy's Calverin, but that alone isn't enough to put him on the same speed tier as Gear 4. Doffy was also able to react to and block Luffy's double Calverin with his off-white technique, which shows he can defend against low-tier Bounce Man techniques. Some may argue that Doffy is relative to Gear 4 due to the 20 minutes that passed off screen, however nothing suggests this on panel. When we see them again on panel, Luffy is being chased by Doffy's awakened strings, so during those 20 minutes it's more likely that Luffy was just closing the distance between him and Doffy rather than them going blow for blow. What's most impressive about Doffy in this fight is definitely his endurance, as he was able to withstand a full round of Gear 4 despite the lasting injuries he suffered against Law. Ultimately, Doflamingo's God Threads wasn't strong enough to stand up to Luffy's King Kong gun, which resulted in his defeat. So that does it for Doflamingo, so now we can move on to Katakuri. When it comes to Katakuri as a fighter, his standout ability is his observation haki, more specifically his ability to see moments in the future. This allowed Katakuri to dodge by morphing his body around attacks, and it posed a big problem for Luffy to overcome. Even with Gear 4, which is several times faster than Gear 2, Luffy couldn't land a hit on Katakuri while his future sight was active. It's not until the second round of the fight where Luffy bloomed his haki to awaken future sight that he was able to be more competitive with Katakuri. Katakuri at top speed is concretely on the level of Snake Man, which is Luffy's fastest form of Gear 4. This is blatantly shown to be the case as he was able to keep up with Snake Man's attacks and even dodge Luffy's fastest technique, the Black Mamba. To put into perspective how ridiculously fast Katakuri is, Base Luffy was able to evade 5 power mochis at the same time thanks to his future sight, which is a stark difference to how Luffy dealt with the power mochis in the first round. Even though Luffy was on the offensive in this sequence, he still sees the third unstoppable donut being formed and is unable to react to the power mochi. Compare that to Base Luffy dodging 5 power mochis at the same time just puts Base Luffy's reaction speed with future sight above his previous Gear 4 that doesn't have future sight. This is further supported in Wano where Gear 4 Luffy is blitzed by Base Kaido's Thunder Bagua. However, during the raid, Base Luffy with future sight was able to react better to the same Thunder Bagua. In Act 1, Luffy was clearly enraged whilst fighting Kaido as he believed his friends were just killed before his eyes, which gives credence to Luffy not being able to use future sight in this moment as it requires one to be calm in order to use it. Whereas in the raid, Luffy highlights his future sight still not being enough to completely dodge the attack, which would be a pointless comment if he already used future sight in Act 1. Not only does future sight improve Base Luffy's reactions, but his combat speed becomes much better as well, as he was able to land a hit on Katakuri whereas his previous Gear 4 couldn't. Some may argue Katakuri was off guard, but that's blatantly not the case. Not only was Katakuri facing where he sent Luffy, he already had his unstoppable donuts formed and he even fired 2 power mochis. So either Luffy jumped out of the rubble and dodged those power mochis, or Luffy outpaced him and landed the punch before Katakuri could hit him. Naturally, Gear 4 is many times faster than Base Luffy, and Katakuri at top speed is comparable to the fastest variant of Gear 4. Not only is he comparable in speed, he's also comparable in terms of attack power and durability. Katakuri and Luffy both exchange multiple punches on each other and they both take each other's attacks relatively evenly. Katakuri could also defend against Luffy's Jet Calverin, whereas the Kongun launched him off his feet, showing his armament defense can stand up to Snake Man but not Bounce Man. However, Katakuri's power mochi are stronger than his edge mochi punches and they're capable of damaging and sending Bounce Man flying. It seems weird that Katakuri didn't use it against Snake Man, but it's probably because they'd be too slow, but that's neither here nor there. After a final exchange between Katakuri's Buzzcut Mochi and Luffy's King Kong Gun, Katakuri was unable to continue fighting, which marked the end of his legendary winning streak. So now that Katakuri and Doflamingo have been fully covered, who actually wins? If it hasn't been made crystal clear yet, Katakuri is just blatantly on a much higher speed tier than Doflamingo. Doffy was barely a rival for Bounce Man prior to Future Sight, and that same Gear 4 couldn't land a hit on Katakuri, who rivals Future Sight Snake Man. The only viable way for Doffy to overcome this is through large attacks that have a big area of effect. Depending on where the fight is held, Doffy can turn many buildings and constructs into string and chase down Katakuri. The problem is Doffy only uses piercing type attacks, which are easier to evade than if he could smother his opponents with strings. Katakuri could easily morph his body around each chunk of string that tries to pierce him. The only advantage I see Doffy having is that he's suited to aerial combat and Katakuri can't fly. However, there's no reason why Katakuri can't just use his awakening, more specifically Mirror Mochi or Rainfall Mochi, to reach him in the air. If you want to be more skeptical about it, since we haven't seen him extend his emochi that far, he doesn't really have any other long range techniques to speak of. The closest thing is Burning Mochi, which is a projectile technique, but I don't think it'd be that effective depending on how high in the air Doffy is fighting from. So far, this fight is just looking like a stalemate as Doffy can't touch Katakuri and Katakuri can't reach Doffy in the air. However, if Katakuri can somehow close the distance, or Doffy for whatever reason closes in on him, Katakuri has the blatant advantage. Doffy wouldn't be able to react to any of Katakuri's attacks and would get pummeled. Off-White is the best defensive technique Doffy has, and although it'd be able to block most of Katakuri's attacks, Doffy isn't fast enough to even use it. Katakuri can create multiple limbs with Willow Mochi to overwhelm him, power mochis would send him flying, and if they get into a hand-to-hand fight, Katakuri would batter him. Katakuri's edged mochi is also more tough than Doflamingo's armament, as Luffy never had any issues clashing with him, but he was hurt when he clashed with Katakuri's armament. So Katakuri has Doffy beat in almost every way, and it's not really that close. Some may argue Doffy would have performed better against Gear 4 had it not been for Law's Gamma Knife, and although that's true, Luffy also entered the final fight heavily damaged, which Doffy himself highlights. People can cope and meme on it all they want, but Bellamy having a free pass to batter Luffy with no resistance for the duration of Law and Doffy's fight weakened Luffy significantly. By no means am I suggesting Bellamy dealt as much damage as the Gamma Knife, however, Doffy being able to repair his organs means he didn't continue fighting with the initial damage the Gamma Knife dealt. I feel like this should go without saying, but Doffy wouldn't be able to catch Katakuri with his parasite string. Katakuri could just expand his neck with mochi and break the string, similar to what Luffy did with Gear 4. Katakuri would realistically be able to see it coming with his future sight anyway, in a similar fashion to how Luffy was able to dodge Flampe's numbing needle. Last thing to address is the birdcage, since I'm sure someone will bring it up in the comments. For as tough as the birdcage is, this isn't a viable win con, as it isn't even a combat technique, and Doffy would just be crushing himself. There's no evidence that Doffy wouldn't be vulnerable to his own strings, so I guess if he can't beat Katakuri, he could just drag him to hell with him and make it a stalemate. Long story short, Katakuri has better observation and armament haki, is much faster than Doffy, and has better feats against Gear 4, so Katakuri would most likely win in convincing fashion. That's about all there is to say on Doflamingo vs Katakuri for now, but if Doffy's ever freed from Impel Down and gets those prison gains, then we can run back this matchup. So if you enjoyed, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I've been the one and only Zage, and until next time.